Welcome in. It's nice to see you guys again. I'm excited for the conversation today. Do you guys know what's up? So, just participate whenever you want. Be part of the conversation. So, Vito, go ahead. It's all yours.
What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I got my good friend in the room. You're all my good friends, but I got my good friend Stephen Murphy calling in. This is a treat. Murph, my man, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Yeah, I'm calling in from Long Island City, man. Long time. How's it going?
Great. How's Manasquan been these days? All right.
Manasquan was really nice this summer. Yeah, my mom's actually holding it down full time these days. Sold the Nutley house and is in Manasquan full time. But I'm on the call here. I recently moved out to Long Island myself.
Do we have any fellow Big Apple folks in the room? Phil, where are you at?
I'm in Oceanside, Long Island, New York.
There we go. Okay, Phil, I moved to forgive me, I'm still working on my Long Island geography, but I moved to Bayshore.
Not too far away, I don't think. I'm not a native, as I'm reminded almost constantly by my family. But yeah, I think that's reasonably close. I'm in Nassau County for what it's worth.
Okay, very cool. 30 minutes.
You East Coasters. Now, Murph and I went to high school together, believe it or not. Back in the day, he knew Vito 1.0. And now here we are. So it's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to have everybody. And that's kind of like the theme of today's, September's a wild month every month, but it seems like it's been a little bit heavier this year. There's just so much stuff going on. So I wanted to take a second and let me share my screen real quick. All right. So first up, I just wanted to take a few minutes. And maybe those few minutes will go into even more time. But in this wild world we live in and all of the stuff that hits our desks, hits our news feeds, hits our fraud feeds, everything, you get the sense that it's crazy how the world is even afloat with all the stuff that goes on, and you know the deal. But I had a really good mentor back in the day. This is right after me and Murph got out of high school, by the way. And, he was teaching me about the ways of the world, this individual. And he's kind of telling me about all these bad things and how things go wrong and things go wrong and things go wrong. And I asked him, I said, what's the antidote to this? Like, what do I do when I grow up and get out of college? Like, what do I do? And he said to me, Vito, the only thing you can do is make your own community, make your own group, and have that be your world. And I'll tell you hand on heart that for the last year, y'all have been my world. Y'all have been my community. I've been very blessed to get to know some of you very personally. Justin's not here. Justin, Ryan, Shelly, all of you, Renuka, everyone here. Murph, I've known you even before the Fraudcast, and now you're part of it, so you've been painted with that brush. But all of you just kind of coming into my world and my heart just does me very good. It's not lip service. I know this is like a very cheap emoji. And, you probably see this a lot. It gets tossed around a lot. But when we try to make meaning out of a world that has very little in terms of meaning, we have to look at the groups that we've forged. Our world in fraud is a crazy one and a nonsensical one in many ways. And we feel the heat of our companies from people who are saying, well, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Why aren't you doing this? How'd you not stop that? But hopefully this little community has given you a little bit of repose, a little bit of, a breath of fresh air, or a glass of cold water, or Renuka, maybe a cup of tea. I know it gets cold over there. Hopefully it's done that for you. And let me make you one promise before I go on to the rest of this show and I get off my spiel. If there's anything that I can do to make your worlds a modicum, a slice, a sliver easier, I'm always here for you. From LinkedIn, most of you have my email. I'm the only Vito Petruzzelli worth finding on the internet, so I got you covered there. I don't care if the ask is small, big, up, down, black, white, purple, whatever. I will always be there to help you out because that's just kind of where my soul is, so to speak. And I know all of you are very much like that. And I just encourage you to do a little more of that in your own practice if you're trying to navigate, whatever wild stuff happens on this earth. Soapbox over, rant over. Let me check in with you. How's everyone doing? And if you don't feel comfortable sharing, like, how's everyone going? Like, what's going on in your world? Whether it's Renuka talking about how cold it is, which for all of us who are non-Torontonians, you might want to hear that because it's pretty wild up there. How's work? How's impending Q4? Phil, I am your beast of burden, my friend. You can always be mean to me. Please, I just love to hear from y'all about how things are going. This is a great opportunity for you to get something off your chest, put something on my back, whatever you need, I'm here for you. So I'm going to take a sip of this beautiful agüita here, and I would love to hear from you.
I'm just currently looking up if there are any other Vito Petruzzellis on LinkedIn.
I don't think my dad has a LinkedIn yet, but he's the only other one I know. And I don't think they need, he works at the Port Authority, so I don't think they need a LinkedIn over there. They got it pretty good. So
There's no LinkedIn at the Port Authority.
no, you're linked out.
Correct. Nice place to be.
And you know what? You could throw it in the chats too. Thumbs ups, thumbs downs. How's it going? You feeling I mean, we talk about fraud pressure and chargebacks and all that. I mean, if that's what's, kind of on your shoulders these days, well, that's what we all get paid to do, So if that's coming down, I get it. But, I'll leave it at this. I'm always here for you one way or the other. Put it that way. And I know y'all are too. So it's just a pleasure to be here. I tell you this every week, but I'm probably never meant it as much as I do right now. It's just an absolute pleasure to be here. So, Ryan says individualism has been heavy on my heart lately. Ryan, great message there. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'd love to hear about that. And I know you have something to share as well. So maybe if you could put those two things together, the floor is yours, my friends. Please be all ears for our good bespeckled friend here, Mr. Ryan McDonald.
Bespeckled with the freckles. What's that? No, I just kind of thinking about everything and admittedly kind of working more in like the threat intel, protective intel space. You just see a lot more of this content. That was one of the things I've learned that I've been able to take away from fraud in my time there was more transactional, more moment in time, more why is this email not the person? Whereas now it's like been interesting in my career to kind of get closer to the human being, going out of their way to make the threats or make the comments. And so I just think about all those individuals and people out there who kind of like myself are trying to figure out what a solid foundation looks like. How should I be viewing the world right now? To Vito's point, what groups, what communities should I be involved in? What does that look like? Does that make me part of the perceived problem, or am I doing good? Just kind of trying to understand more so in today's world what it actually means to be a human, and I'm a big sociology geek, so that's kind of where that very open-ended thought comes from, but genuinely curious why people are the way they are. So kind of the fear and also intriguing excitement of individualism has something I've been thinking about. How do we create a proper barrier between lonely and alone and what that means, and striving to do your best as an individual versus being codependent on something to enable just kind of those little small things that I just feel have a big impact. So beautiful. I know it was a lot, Vito. That was a lot, but that's just kind of what I've been thinking about.
No, I love that because not to bring any doom and gloom into this, but we know we're all in e-commerce, right? And we know somewhere, if we think about our chargebacks or like stolen credit cards and that kind of like stuff, yeah, there's plenty of people who are just trying to like get one up on the system, but somewhere in that chain, the worst things on earth are being funded. Somewhere in that chain, to some degree, in some places more or less, the worst things are being funded from, I don't even need to mention them. And maybe in our e-commerce world, we're seeing the trickle down of it, because for any of the folks who are in cryptocurrency and that kind of fraud prevention, that's really directly linked to financing terror groups and all sorts of awful, awful things. So I want to let y'all have that moment, and maybe you need this moment, and I want to give it to you to kind of pat yourself on the back, and say, I might not be effective all the time, but I'm doing enough to kind of push this boulder and hold it a little bit so that it doesn't just roll all the way down to the village and pummel it. You deserve to hear that, because I know how, look how serious this group is. Not like, I know you're all fun times. I don't mean it that way, but like, you're at a podcast to talk about your job. Most people put on a podcast to escape from all of that crap, but you're here to like talk. So you are the fraud freaks that I love. You're one of us. We're all in this together. So take that moment, if you're feeling good or bad or otherwise, to kind of look in the mirror and say, yo, you're doing it. Like, keep it up. Even if it's 10%, 13%, 18%, like that's a difference. So Ryan, I was just piggybacking on there. I would love to hear a little more from you. And then I know we're teasing this morsel, this announcement, this drop. So whenever you want to drop that, you drop that too, my friend.
I just wanted to say to what you just said, Vito. Like that's why I really enjoy this community, and why, like, even in work, I make it known to my leadership that I'm going to this every week because it's important to me to hear from my peers, but also to have that ability to speak openly about what's going on in my world, and resolve that individualism challenge and not be met with, haste or neglect, but kind of a general understanding. Like, why do you feel that way? I'm curious if, and so a good segue there in terms of community, and I'll put, not being salesy, but I wanted to make you guys aware, and I appreciate Vito and Gena for giving me the opportunity of a free event. And I want to emphasize free. Every year, we do an event called OSINT Live. It's free. And what we do is we bring on industry leading experts from other fellow companies, leading security and fraud and intelligence teams at companies we all interact with and work with on a daily basis. Just essentially create an environment where consumers like us, but other colleagues as well, can hear directly from these experts how they're solving things, how they're looking at the landscape, the trending fraud threat realm, what tools and techniques. That's probably one of the biggest takeaways here, is you get so much valuable free, like, workflow technique information for how to think about these different scenarios from an OSINT perspective without having to spend money on those capabilities. So if anything, it just equips us all just with another perspective lens to consider looking through that may be new or uncomfortable. And so I talked to Vito about it, and I just wanted to make you guys aware and would love to see you guys register and sign up. If you're interested, like I said, it's free. It's a full day session. The agenda is live online. All these people have a LinkedIn. You can connect with them, but just wanted to kind of showcase that because I'm really super proud of what my company does here, because this is like the biggest piece of the puzzle, is that collaboration and not being afraid to collaborate and what the detriment might be to me, but how do we positively impact that issue we're trying to fight together.
If you get the opportunity to hear anyone from Anthropic speak about anything, you listen, so I'd love that too, because what do we try to do in this world? And I'm getting like really preachy today, but bear with me. It is my microphone, y'all. I could preach on. Like, we're always trying to put ourselves into other people's shoes. And that's to help and to love and to be compassionate. But also when we're trying to stop fraud and we're trying to think about what that next vector is going to be like and what that next attack is going to take on and all that kind of stuff, we want to be able to anticipate. We want to be able to be proactive instead of reactive. You heard all your bosses say that before. You should be proactive instead of reactive, right? You've heard that. I can't think of a better place to go to get a little bit for your bag of tricks. I used to play the drums when I was in high school. Murph knows all about it. And my drum instructor used to say, you got to make your bag of tricks bigger. So this is how you make your bag of tricks bigger. Thank you for sharing, Ryan. You know where to find Mr. Ryan McDonald. In my estimation, the only Ryan McDonald worth finding on LinkedIn as well. So hit up that link, hit up Ryan. Ben's in. Let's go. Please go for it. Go for it. Go for it. Anything else, Ryan?
I really just appreciate the support in this group. And Vito, just like you said, we become closer friends than just kind of colleagues. And so appreciate the support, appreciate the, putting these, some of these products to the test, proving me right, proving me wrong. That's always what I'm looking for, guys, is just making sure that all my colleagues, my friends, my customers, you're enabled. That's all I care about, is you're enabled to go do your thing. So if this adds value and helps, let me know how I can help get you involved.
If you've got anything going on in your world, I don't care if it's work related or if you've got like an art exhibition or if you're like Screamo band just dropped a new album, like this is always a place where you can get that out here. Gena will attest to this. This is about us. It's work is what we talk about all the time, but sometimes you got to take a deep breath and kind of step away from it. And this is your place too. So if you've got your MySpace, your Bandcamp, your World Star Hip Hop page that you want to like get out there, this is the place you could do it too.
I'm doing, I just put it in the chat. I'm doing a little hot dog pop up on September 27th. I'm bringing Rutt's Hut to the South Shore of Long Island. It's called South Shore Rippers. If you want to follow along on Instagram, that's not why I came to this.
Yes, Phil, you gotta go. Phil, you gotta go.
Yeah, it's out on Fire Island. If you can make it, if not, I'm going to be doing one back on the mainland, probably in October. I'll come back and let this group know all about it.
This has done my heart great because I don't know how many of you know about the culinary delight that is Rutt's Hut. if you haven't had those snappy dogs before, if you haven't walked out of there with a mustard stained t-shirt like I have so many times, you haven't lived, my friend. So get yourself over. South Shore Rippers, endorsed by, do we have your endorsement? Is this now a South Shore Rippers podcast?
Yeah.
Dude, clip that.
I'll come back in a couple of weeks with some content from the event to share out if you have any hot dog fans in the group. And if you don't, that's okay. I'll just send it to Vito.
Awesome. And I hope you do not experience any fraudsters while you're hawking your dogs. And if you do, Ryan will tell you where they're at, and all of us will make sure that they're no longer able to transact on a number of different e-commerce platforms. We've got you covered. And you got me covered, because that was the perfect segue to me figuring out how to share my screen again. A little bit of a mea culpa for you. I don't know how many of you received an email that kind of looked like this last week, and it came from me. I'll read it to you. It says, "We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no longer than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall, Deputy Headmistress." Now, I'm well versed in the Twilight universe. I could tell you about the Volturi. I could tell you all about like what they're up to. Not so well versed in the Harry Potter realm. So I can assure you that A, I didn't write this. B, I wasn't hacked. What happened was I was writing my weekly email out to all of you to tell you what was going on at the Fraudcast. I'm kind of new to the game and I'm a little silly. Let's just put it that way. And I hit a backspace where I shouldn't have done it. The text defaulted to this lorem ipsum that just so happens to be Harry Potter related, and you might have received this from me. So let me be on the record here saying, number one, we are endorsed by South Shore Rippers, so you got that on the record. Number two, my bad, you're not going to Hogwarts. I'm sorry. This might have got you really excited. I hate to let you down. There is no Quidditch in your future unless you do that on your own time. Yeah, you're not getting the NIL deal from, Draco Malfoy or whatever. That's one of the names I just pulled out of the old, you know what? So my bad if you got this. Please unblock me. Please, don't see me as spam in the future. I promise I will only put good things in your inbox. If anyone's been affected by this, let me know. I might even send you some swag. Just let me know. I got you covered. And you can even pretend like you were affected by it, right? But let's talk about something that's affecting us in general. I wanted to come back to work real quick, and then we can go back into our world. And let me pause and just say, you've made me smile a lot today. You've done my heart good. I hope we've done it a little bit for you. This is what I was hoping to happen, and it happened. Okay, first-party abuse, my friends. We've known this as friendly fraud, right? What does that mean? For the sake of this conversation, you're looking at your chargebacks for the week, the month, whatever period, and you see a bunch of fraud claims, not item not received, not significantly not ascribed, not general. You're seeing fraud claims, but once you dig into that fraud claim, you're like, dude, the person who's making this claim is like a loyal customer. We can see that their IP address is right by their house. They're using the same device that they always transact on. There's nothing suspicious about this order, but it's got a fraud chargeback. What the heck's going on there? That's what we call first-party abuse, friendly fraud in the old nomenclature. Here's some Signifyd network insights for you to take back and tell the old team, see, I wasn't crazy. This is actually going on. 45% of people, 45% of merchants, so people who are in your shoes, claim that first-party abuse, friendly fraud, is their biggest fraud problem, bar none. And I'm telling you this because I know you. I know you by now. I know you're sitting at your desk and you're looking at these chargebacks. You're saying, this makes no sense. There's no fraud. It must be the craziest hack job on earth. It's their device. It's their IP. And they're buying a $15 shirt. Why would you do this, right? 63% of merchants, more than half of our vast commerce network here at Signifyd, is saying, hey, it's gone up. It's our worst thing and it's gone up. So it's getting really bad. 20% of all fraud incidents across the entire commerce network were first-party fraud. And we're up from last year. So it's only getting worse. I wanted to give you, we're talking about making your toolbox or bag of tricks or whatever bigger this week, right? So get your hot dogs, go to the Scope Now event, and then think about this when you're kind of doing your work. It's one thing to look at friendly fraud as this kind of gotcha opportunity, right? And it's fun. We live for those got you opportunities. When we examine from our carriers, our 3PLs, whoever's doing the shipping, when we examine the picture that says hey, I delivered this, I dropped it off at their house, then we get that friendly fraud chargeback saying, Y'all sent me a basketball goal. That's the Southern nomenclature. The hoops is what they say on the island, right? Y'all got that hoop on the island, but I didn't get it. Like, you shipped it to me, it never came. Like, I just simply didn't get it. Sometimes we know in the crime game, in the fraud game, criminals are pretty silly, is a good word for it. Simply going on Google Maps and going to their house, and we can see that they're advertising the very thing that they said they didn't get, and it's on their driveway right now. Like, gotcha, dude. And that's pretty compelling evidence when we, kind of make our dispute, right? But I want you to think outside of the win back opportunity. I might be a little too optimistic here, but just work with me on optimism. Friendly fraud, first party abuse might be a really good friend for you. Not that you want more of it. No one wants more of it, but it really might give you that aha, eureka moment as to what you're offering on your website, how you're doing things from a standard operating procedure position, and maybe where some of the shortcomings are across your teams. It allows you to take a page out of the Susie School of Communications and cross-thread a little more effectively. So maybe if you look at somebody who's made a friendly fraud chargeback and you're able to cull this data and get this information, you might see that they tried contacting customer support, or maybe they did contact customer support about an order. Maybe they didn't get through. Maybe they didn't get the kind of response they were looking for, to quote Pink Floyd. Maybe they're asking, is anybody out there? Like, I was calling, didn't get on the line. Therefore, I'm just filing a fraud chargeback because it's super simple. Rather than waiting 20 minutes on hold, I could just go onto my mobile app. I don't know this purchase, wasn't me, fraud, get my money back. All right, so that might be a little opportunity for you to cross thread there and say okay, maybe, there was a big spike on the phone banks and the hold times were egregious and that was going on. Maybe we could find a way to work with customer support to get less volume over there. Maybe there's something we can automate on our end to help them out, which would then in turn bring friendly fraud claims down. Food for thought. Number 2, I like to class all of my friendly fraud chargebacks in relation to, in a chart with the SKUs that are targeted, because there might be some supplier side shortcomings. Maybe that cashmere sweater that y'all are hawking now, it advertises as a medium, but it's going in the wash and coming out a schmedium. That might be something going on. Maybe, the green is a little more taupe. I don't know if that's a kind of green. It's not green. Maybe that's going on. So maybe you've switched suppliers lately and your product is kind of suffering for it. This could be a really quick insight into why people are filing these friendly fraud chargebacks. We talked about carriers early. Maybe all of these friendly fraud chargebacks are linked to a certain carrier. Maybe FedEx, God bless y'all, or anyone else is kind of being a little slow in certain regions, in certain geos. Maybe you need to update your messaging on your site. Here's a good opportunity to cross-thread with product. Maybe you need to update your messaging. Shout out Grace Brabham at Shipper HQ. Grace, if you're listening, Grace has great videos on LinkedIn every week about the kind of messaging that goes into your checkout page and the expectations that you're setting for your buyers. If those expectations aren't met, this is a very demanding world of e-commerce. So they might be saying, hey, you told me 3 days, I'm at day 4. Kind of sounds petulant, but this is just how people are. God bless them. At day 4, I didn't get it. Fraud chargeback. I'm not even calling you. I don't even want to deal with it. That could be some good information for you to work with product on different messaging, work with your logistics teams to kind of call out, crack the whip a little bit on a carrier. Again, cross-thread. Finally, we talked about SKU similarities and SKU concentrations. Maybe when we see our friendly fraud spike and we relate it to a specific SKU, maybe our flash sale was a little too wild. Maybe there's a lag in how we're presenting inventory online and what we've actually got in the warehouse. Maybe you were hit by some good bots who were just power buying, and they're not going to file chargebacks. But for every good bot who power buys and gets 40 or 50 counts of the same SKU, you might be leaving some people in the dark. I might have made the order. It went through, at least to me, ostensibly, but I didn't know that all the inventory was already eaten up milliseconds before I made that order. Now I'm getting an email a week later saying, sorry, dude, you're gonna have to wait till, December to get your cashmere sweatpants. And I'm gonna say, well, I don't have that time. I need those cashmere sweatpants ahora, my friend. And I'm just gonna file that friendly fraud chargeback because that's just the way the world works. Think about these 4 points when you start to look at a chargeback that makes no sense to you and that you suspect is friendly fraud. And I can guarantee you that you're gonna get a little bit more insight into your broader operation, you're going to get a little more ammunition to cross-thread with, and you're going to seem a little bit more effective than just saying like, got no idea what's going on. Why are people turning rotten? And kind of like commiserating in that way. So big spiel there, big spiel. But I'm just wondering from y'all, water incoming from me, I'm going to take a pause. How's the friendly fraud looking on your end? What are you doing to help stop it? My good friend Shelly is off mute. Shelly, I tip my cap to thee.
So we just did a year-over-year comparison for our chargeback dispute rate. I want to shout out to my team who got us up to a 23% win rate, which is freaking amazing. So anyway, but one of the areas that we focus on is preventable disputes. Friendly fraud could be preventable in some cases as long as they're not trying to do that, oh, I didn't get it thing. But we went back to the credit not processed category specifically because it's a refund that should have been issued that somebody dropped the ball on. Our refund process is not easy, as you can imagine. If you were going to return a Peloton bike, we don't just issue the refund when you say you're going to scan it at FedEx. We literally have to schedule an appointment to go pick it up. It has to be taken to the warehouse and then adjusted back into inventory. And so all of that has to happen. It can take a while, especially if you're not ready to pick up tomorrow and you wait 2 weeks. We don't issue a refund until the SKU's back in our inventory. So we created a report for the team. We said, this is what pending refunds that you have, you need to monitor them on a weekly basis. We dropped it by 18% year over year just by bringing attention to it. And now we have an actual report and a process. It caused them to go back, look at their SOPs, see what they were doing right or wrong. And now I'm hoping we can report back on an even further drop. Do we expect to have some? Of course, nobody's perfect. But we've brought a heightened attention to it. And that was big, is looking at those preventable disputes that are technically friendly fraud because they're not trying to do something malicious, but you didn't do what you promised to do. Low-hanging fruit.
Promises made, promises delivered, as Stu Feiner always says, if anyone knows who I'm talking about. Promises made, promises delivered. And that's going to be the driver there. I love that, Shelly. And I know I hype you up all the time, but you're deserving of it, right? This is the kind of stuff that differentiates us. I think the mantle that we take up in fraud is how do we get the label of cost center like off our backs? How do we rip that off and just say like, I'm not a cost center. I'm a revenue optimizer. I'm driving growth. I'm helping out with bottom line. And you're at 18% this year, which is freaking killer. Think about the year over year. Think about establishing that metric of like cost of doing business. Like we can't win these back, like, or this is just how it is. And then when you have more time and honing in on that, let's say it's, 30% of your friendly fraud chargebacks are just cost of doing business year over year. The more granularity you get into it, gets a little bit smaller. Look at all the growth on Shelly's team. Look at all of the wins coming out of that is saving us money. And it's not just Shelly's team who stops orders from coming through and, gets customers mad.
I pushed it back on the business. Like you said, I'm not a revenue generating. It's not my cost center. And it's not my job to do these refunds. I catch them on the back end after somebody's already dropped the ball. So here's a tool, use it. But Shelly's School of Communications, Susie's School of Communications, I said it in their language. Think of what this is doing to our MSTAT. That is like the most important thing, customer support team, is what our people say about us. When you don't issue a refund, it puts a bad taste in their mouth for our brand. And that's the word of mouth that spread. Maybe they didn't want to be a member right now. Maybe they couldn't. Maybe it just wasn't for them. But if you make it a bad experience when they separate from us, nobody's going to us. They're going to tell all their friends how awful it was. So I flip it around to a language that they speak and they're like, oh, hey, I could do that. Perfect.
Another mantra that calls up is this from our good friend Kelly Anderson. Nobody sits on more robust customer data than we do. And nobody has a better in to the customer experience than we do because of that. So everything you're talking about is protecting reputation, ensuring that the word doesn't get out on Reddit, X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, etc., to have people paint us with a crap brush that we're really bad at our jobs. And now in this agentic world, once I go on to ChatGPT, Perplexity, wherever, and I start to look for an item, get me an exercise bike and find me the one that has the best ratings, Peloton's going to get hit hard in a bad way because, whoa, there's all these ratings about their crap with their refunds. You've changed that. You're doing AEO without even doing AEO, my friend. So poetry snaps for our friend Shelly, if you've got them. Let me see some snaps. And Renuka, let me get a poetry snap. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. Lynn, double poetry snaps. Brilliant. Shelly, thank you for sharing that. Inspirational. Murph with the poetry snaps. Loving it. Jamie writes in. Jamie says, we had to make some merchant descriptor changes to align with our parent company ordering channel on our website, which helped some of our friendly fraud chargebacks. Language is key. In the land of the blind, the man with one eye is king. In this world of like invisible zeros and ones, kind of putting it out in text. This is me like patting myself on my back for getting an English degree. So, bear with me. So language is king, my friends. We also drop ship and use several shipping companies and have issues with INR, but pod shows item delivered, just like the sad pic you shared on the slide. So that must have been a really fun investigation, Jamie, especially when you had that eureka moment. Would love to hear about that, but I just want to throw in Paula's response real quick and maybe hear a little bit more from both of y'all. Paula says, a good example is when you switch card processors. Ooh, spicy. Good examples when you switch card processors and the new processor used the not very recognizable corporate name instead of the well-known DBA as the merchant descriptor, and no one noticed until chargebacks tripled. I love that because I know y'all are like me. And on my fancy iPhone 14, yeah, I'm a little behind the curve. What are you going to do? On my fancy iPhone 14, I get those Bank of America notifications saying exactly what was ran on my credit card, exactly when it happens. And if I see something funky, if I just ate at Rutt's Hut and it says like, Ginkgo Industries, I'm going to be like, ugh. It might line up logistically. It might line up with the amount, but this is too weird for me to accept. Like dispute. So amazing point there, Paula. Would love to hear from y'all. Would love to hear from Jamie. What was that like when you got to the bot? What was in your little like sleuthing toolbox when you were able to get those were you Google mapping? Were you Google Earthing? Were you on Pinterest? As my friend likes to say, Pinterest. Were you on the Pinterest looking at people's pictures? How'd that go?
For the proof of delivery stuff, it's always like if the carrier that we use that, has the proof of delivery, if they're kind enough to upload a photo of the delivery, that's what we use. But I've also been in situations where, I'm able to use, it might not be as recognizable as like the example that you showed where it might have the house number or something. But if the proof of delivery has like the garbage can, the basketball hoop, something like that, the bricks on the side, the same color garage door, and then I'll street view it and, single out that same area and then provide that, so that's sort of how we've gone about that, to sort of show like, this looks pretty delivered to me, but we just have a lot of like miscommunication, along the lines of what Shelly was saying, like, our sales representatives or our CS agents, we kind of rely on them to differentiate that for our, either people who are ordering or have called in and said like, I don't recognize this transaction, which hopefully you get that before you get a dispute, but not always. But, we really try and communicate with them and say like, okay, you're placing an order on build.com, but you're in a Ferguson showroom location. They're just with the iPad and they're shopping literally on our website in a Ferguson store and adding cart and all this stuff. And then those associates, either maybe they just didn't know or didn't understand, but point of sale representatives don't really understand the e-commerce, weirdness with a merchant descriptor. And so that just came with more communication, to how these transactions show up. But a lot of it was us, contacting the customers and saying like, hey, you bought this at a build.com/Ferguson showroom. Like, was this really fraud or was this a mistake? And so getting their customers involved really helped kind of push our own narrative, I don't want to say it made them kind of look dumb, but maybe it did, so so they spread the word, and that helped. But yeah, a lot of it's really for us is miscommunication.
A little bit of legwork in the beginning, which might seem like, oh crap, do I have to do this all the time? I want to give you all, and I think Jamie's given it for you, Shelly's given it for you, Paul's, and everyone's given it for you. It's not going to be something you always have to do. When we talk about what Jamie did and what Shelly did, they're hitting the phones and they're doing that like hardcore work in a short sprint. And their goal is to not just rectify that situation right here and now, but it's to develop, as Jamie said so brilliantly, a narrative. Because then that narrative goes back internally, that narrative changes processes, and then you are going to be much better off in the long term. You're not going to have to deal with that in the long term, or you're going to deal with it a lot less. And you're going to look pretty dang cool. And if you got to make some people feel a little silly, we're all grown-ups in this world. It's all right. Maybe they were silly billies and they got to just deal with it now. So I hope that some of this kind of becomes part of your toolbox, y'all. You know, you're all graduates of, Fraudcast University. Sometimes we need to go to night school and get a little bit of a refresher on some things. But do the legwork now to make sure that those things are mitigated, and know that the end goal of that legwork is narrative building. It's building a story that you can tell internally using the language of the people you're speaking to, as Shelly said so brilliantly. And that's what's going to make it effective. And that's what's going to get the burden off your team. We talk about headcounts being, restrictive and work only going up. Maybe there's something that we're not thinking about there in terms of storytelling that can mitigate all that for us. Just food for thought. I have 2 minutes left here. I want to give anybody the last say, the final word, put you on the cool throne, not the hot seat, my friends. What are your words of peace, love, and inspiration for everybody as we trudge in to the second half of this month, as we enter into the final quarter 4 of the year? What's your war cry, your mantra? What's your thing? Here, you got the opportunity. Floor is yours. I'll quote from Caddyshack because I think it's fitting for today. It's easy to grin when your ship comes in and you've got the stock market beat, but the man worthwhile is the man who can smile when his pants are too tight in the seat. Remember that, my friends. No matter how tough things get, keep spreading the love. Keep just doing a little bit for the people who are around you in your small circles. Thank you, Emma. I appreciate it. There's my misspent child. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate it. And spent way too much time watching that DVD. Thank you, Shelly. Thank you. And let me just go back real quick and thank you, Renuka. And this final minute here, I just want to rehash what I said. Really just much love to y'all and your families and everyone else. Keep your loved ones close and tight, and just be the kind of person, the kind of soul you want to see on this earth. Good things won't always happen, but that will make more good things happen. So from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of Jenna's heart, I'm sure, Jenna, if you want to say a few words here, Jenna, I'm kind of just alluding to you, but from the bottom of our hearts, I just really cannot tell you how grateful I am to have y'all as friends every week. It means the world to me. Thank you. And until next Wednesday, my friends, I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. And it was a blast. Thanks to Murph. And hey, if you're in the area and you want a good hot dog, my man's got the best in the business. Go out and get him. Thanks to all of you. Go forth and be the beautiful human beings that you are, and good things will happen. I will see y'all soon.